Hello and welcome to our webinar, Risk and Reward, a look at personal finance on TikTok. My name is Jeremy Hollow and I'm the founder and the MD of Listen and Learn Research. And at Listen and Learn, we exist to help you think creatively, strategically or innovatively. And we do that by harnessing some great, amazing content on TikTok and helping you understand what that means for you and your brand. What's the big idea? What's the big plan for today? I want to really get across one crucial idea or one crucial thought. TikTok has become, in a really short amount of time, one of the most powerful growth engines available to brands. The way that it engages people, the way that it brings communities of interest around certain ideas, has led to the fact that they can then come together to create huge surges of demand. I get that TikTok's a bit weird. I get it's not for everyone, and you don't have to be on TikTok. But I think as marketers and researchers and strategists, we can't afford to ignore it.
Hey, you got some money I can borrow?
Sure, you can have up to $1,000.
Cool, I'll take $100, please.
Are you sure you don't want more?
Yeah, because I know that if I use more than 10 to 30% of my credit allowance, you'll damage my credit score.
Oh, someone thinks they're clever. By the way, you only have to pay me back $10. I've got you.
No, I'm paying it all back in full, so I avoid paying any interest. Thank you very much.
How does he know my secrets?
Because I follow Mark Tilbury.
I think TikTok, where it came from, gave us this idea that it was just about Gen Z's dancing, and that's where it started, right? But it's no longer the case. It's got over 1 billion monthly active users. 47% are aged between 10 to 29, 42% aged 30 to 49, and 11% aged 50 plus. And this is a demographic shift that we see shifting older and older all the time. It's just over sort of majority female, and 37% of a household income of over $100,000. And it's so strong in terms of how it brings people together. You may have heard TikTok made me buy it. Well, that alone as a hashtag has been viewed over 22 billion times. The numbers we're talking about here are simply phenomenal. We're in the billions, not the thousands, not the millions. We're in the billions of views. It has such breadth and such reach, and that's one of the reasons that makes it so powerful. One of the couple of examples to just draw on to just sort of clarify the power and the weight of what we've done. There's a community on TikTok called Book Talk, and it's had a really fundamental shift in how the publishing industry goes about marketing things, and has taken a lot of the power away from traditional forms of marketing and put it very much squarely into a relatively small handful of people on Book Talk. And this is a great quote that sort of emphasizes the change that TikTok's brought about. Oprah was one woman making a recommendation and sometimes selling 2 million books. Now it's 100 people making recommendations on BookTok and selling 4 million books. And the publishers, well, we're all sitting just back going, okay, what's the next one they're going to pick? There are lots and lots of stories about publishers or authors who have had a book published many years ago and are getting calls from their agent going, you're number one on the bestseller list again. This is not marketing. The marketing died out years and years ago. These are books that have been published and that have been around, but have been resurrected and brought to life by a community of people on TikTok, and they're selling in the millions. The other example I wanted to just draw to was a company called CeraVe, which is owned by L'Oreal, and it managed to grow its market share by 70%. And this is in tune of around $300 million increase in market share, and that was in 1 year. And we looked about where all that was happening. There wasn't a lot of above the line advertising. Their presence across most other sort of like text-based social was pretty flat across that period. But what we did see was a lot of growth coming back from TikTok. We saw that when you look at how it was performing in terms of engagement with its content, it was 10x, it was 10 times the level of engagement that it was getting from its competitor brands. So if you look at Neutrogena in the same sort of time zone, they were getting 80 million views on content with that hashtag, where CeraVe was getting 860 million, and those numbers have increased massively since then. So what we'll do is just proving this fact that TikTok can work as this massive demand generating engine. According to The Economist, nearly a quarter of US young investors have used it for financial advice. So this idea that it's just about songs, it's just about dancing is completely now out of date. It works across every single category imaginable. Hashtag Money Talk has been viewed over 16 billion times, FinTalk 2 billion times, and Personal Finance 6.9 billion times. It represents a huge level of engagement around communities of interest that people are following and engaging with across TikTok. What makes TikTok so powerful for insight? Why do we get so excited about it? Well, it all comes down to this idea of it gives us a window into other people's lives, what they're interested in, what they're involved with. And it's not just the content creators themselves, although they're amazing. It's also the thread and all the comments that are coming in around those videos and the way that people who aren't creating are engaging with that content as well. And we know that people don't talk to researchers the way they talk to each other. So observing these interactions on TikTok become incredibly interesting and incredibly useful, particularly when we know that the views of that content can be so enormous. And what can that help us do? Well, it can help us find and understand new audiences. We can look at people. So I can understand the Book Talk audience because I can look at their content and understand what is it that makes them tick. And we've done this across a bunch of different sectors where we can just help people understand who is in their audience and what they need. It can help you think about your strategy. How are you approaching the market? Where are you focusing your time? What channels are you going to use to get your message across? It can help you build better comms by understanding from the ground up what's important to people, how they make sense of the world, what's resonating with them, what do they choose to talk about, and what content is attracting the numbers. It can also help you improve products and services by showing people what people need, what they're frustrated with, what's working for them and what's not. So in terms of just think about the method of how we go about looking at or turning TikToks into insight. The first thing to think about is that all social data, and TikToks in particular, are essentially stories. We're just sharing stories of our life or what's interesting to us or our points of view or our experiences or the situation that we find ourselves in. So we start with that as a sort of a generous view of what this data is all about, and then we treat it in the right way through the process. We're not trying to just crunch it into the numbers because that's reducing everything to a sense of what's. What we're trying to do here is get the why. Why do people believe the things they do? Why do they behave in the way they do? Why do they think the way they do and act the way they do? The next thing we need to do is think about sourcing the data. And TikTok is starting to become more available through different social listening platforms. There are some vendors that we work with which are super helpful in trying to get us just really getting the best kind of content. And the way that we think about it is we start looking at content that's out there, trying to bring to life and surface what are the dominant hashtags within any sort of conversation. So it could be FinTalk, it could be personal finance. Once you've got those hashtags, then work with your vendors to sort of collect data that's the most engaged with in that world. So we might take the top 2,000 most engaged videos that relate to these hashtags. Then the process is really about finding meaning. And for us, being qualitative at heart, we're reading, we're listening, we're looking at the contents, we're making notes, we're using sort of content analysis techniques to really understand what is it that you mean by what you're saying on TikTok. What are the different elements of meaning that are coming across? And then ultimately, we sort of bring those together, trying to find, okay, what are the patterns? What's going on? What are the personas? What are the groups of behaviors? And ultimately, that comes together to help us spot commercial opportunities in what's going on. So we understand this audience, we understand where they are, we understand who's influencing that conversation. All of that gives our content team, our marketing team, our ad team amazing information, amazing insight, amazing ammunition to enter into that conversation in the right way, in the right place, and at the right time. Getting these rich insights from TikTok can show you how to understand consumer attitudes towards personal finance, which is the main subject of today. It can help you understand what motivates consumers to improve their finances. It can help you understand what stands in their way. And we're going quite top level today, but you can use TikTok to understand the process of applying for credit cards, checking credit scores, being a first-time buyer, mortgages. All of these concepts have their own sub-communities around them that are very specific. And you can also use TikToks to help you get those insights and help you get to feed all of that into your product and innovation marketing.
Son, after 40 years at the factory, I'm finally retiring, and I want to give you the house. Congrats, Dad, but I'd prefer if you kept it in your name. Are you telling me you don't want the home? You've had the property for a long time and it's gone up a lot in value. So if you put it in my name and I sold it, I'd have to pay a lot of capital gains tax on that. So what do we do instead? You can put the home in a trust and then add me as a beneficiary. That way, when you kick the can, many years from now, then I won't have to pay any capital gains tax on any of the appreciation that has occurred in your lifetime. Because of the stepped up tax basis rule, that way our family could keep more money. Well, son, that's very smart of you. And it's good to know that all of my hard work will go towards creating generational wealth and not a bathroom upgrade in the Pentagon. Where'd you learn about all this? I learned it from Avery. He knows all the tips and tricks about building your wealth.
One of the big questions that goes across topics when we look at FinTech, when we look at personal finance as a sort of a big category question, one of the big dominant questions here is around risk or not to risk. That seems to be a huge debate, and lots of people getting involved in it, lots of people thinking about. There are lots of drivers underneath that question. What we're seeing is people on both sides. We're saying those people who are advocating to take more risk, and that's the way to go. Other people on the other side saying, no, you need to use more traditional sort of investment tools. And what you've got is very strong viewpoints, as we see from Avery. He obviously has his own view about how people's risk profile should play out. And these people are coming to the surface. They're building content. People are engaging with that content. They're liking that content. They're watching and rewatching that content. And so you're starting to see these dominant voices come across. What we found when we were looking at the idea of risk and reward in TikTok was often the riskier path is the path that's shown to be more appealing. It's the one that seems to have the lead to the better lifestyle. They kind of almost denigrate traditional models of being not for them, like it's not going to work. They downplay the risks of investing or trading rather than sort of just the more traditional kind of ways of saving money. Alongside that, they also look at sort of traditional investments and point out the fact that actually a lot of them are linked to stock market as well, and so have that inherent risk. And they tend to talk with a certain total certainty that they've totally got this completely sorted out, that their advice is like completely foolproof. And there's a confidence here and a swagger here, which is really interesting. If you think about how that approach is then in a completely unregulated way, playing into people who are then thinking about what financial decisions they want to make. And if you watch lots of these, you get a little bit brainwashed after a while. You start to think, oh, maybe I will start doing that. Maybe I will start looking at it. Because it's exposure to content, which is engaging and entertaining and fun and easy to consume. So this question of risk and not to risk sort of prevails and goes through the whole sort of thread of financial personal finance on TikTok. And this is an example of one of the sort of the far end of this, where there are people who are sort of really saying that anything is possible when you're investing, when you're taking riskier investments, where you're trading financial products, and you're working through. And this idea of this is the glamour boys, the people with the yachts and the boats and the parties, where they've made so much money and they're just showing that life for you. Finance TikTok can perpetuate the myths and the scams and, to be honest, really dangerously misleading information. It's not regulated. TikTok police aren't anywhere near as on top of it as potentially as they could be, and they can't be because there's just so much content. And what you've got are these strong, confident, highly sort of stylized, ambitious lifestyle goals that seem to be made possible by just trading, just following my advice. And in a way, what it's doing is it's filling a void left by a lack of what I would describe as regulated voices. The people who actually know what they're talking about, coming into this world and going, okay, right, this is the risk profile. This is the reality of it. You can't just look at one example that may or may not be true and take that as gospel. A lot of these people that are putting themselves out there as master traders or master investors, actually the side hustle that they're really promoting is their resources. Buy my book, follow my webinars, join my Discord channel. And it's another way of almost like this perceived lifestyle up front is a way of them really gaining an audience to then sell that content, sell that those materials that they're creating to sort of, they're trying to feed that engine of their entrepreneurial side, but they're probably making more money selling advice than they are selling on trading. However, we do see some people sort of pushing back on that. We see some more veteran voices. We see a bunch of good guys, good girls out there who are actually trying to advise people on TikTok that there are risks and they are real, and you can lose a lot of money, and to just look into it more. And it's much more just trying to puncture some of these sort of like very convoluted, sort of highly stylized ideals. They're trying to just bring a bit more balance to that. And as I said, TikTok police can't control this, as we see in stories the whole time. So I think the implication for us here is there is a role for seasoned, authentic voices to come into this conversation in the right way, to just balance things, and just to find the right way of just engaging with a population that's hungry for knowledge, hungry for alternative ways of making money, might be frustrated with the traditional ways or not see that as a viable route for them, to sort of help that audience learn and grow. And what we do see across all of this, particularly in financial services, is this desire, this hunger to learn, to grow, and to develop your skills around how to manage your money as effectively as possible.
This is what rich people won't tell you. You won't get rich off a salary alone. Inflation steals your wealth, so invest. Buy assets, not liabilities. Never spend more than you make. Pay yourself first, always. Compounding interest works wonders.
Another narrative that we're seeing in personal finance on TikTok is this idea of outsmarting a system that's failed you. There is a disillusionment with traditional financial service providers. There's a disillusionment with the economic status quo, and there's a perceived lack of opportunity. So when you go through that system as a younger person, looking at the options that were available for your family or for your fathers or the elder generation, i.e. getting on the property ladder, investing and growing capital through that way. But when the barriers to entry to that world are now so high, that creates a disillusionment and encourages people to look for other options and other ways of trying to get to the same point, but through a different route. We also picked up on this belief that things will be worse for Gen Z than their parents. And that also feeds into this, okay, what's the point of following that route and investing in that route, and this desire to look for alternatives. There's again this narrative, and we see it in healthcare, things your doctor hasn't told you. There is nothing your doctor hasn't told you. But there's this idea about rich people having access to special information that is hidden from you. And that's a powerful device through TikTok is used to sort of say, I will tell you, I'll bring you into the secrets. You'll be able to have the same tools as rich people and then therefore have that same lifestyle. And there's another desire to sort of like outsmart the system that they feel they're butting up against through different ways, through traditional forms of investment. They want to get around that because of the disillusionment, the challenges, the issues of getting on the property ladder. All of those things create this desire to work around it, which feeds into content creators' needs to sort of, or ability to say, we've got that other way. We can show you what to do.
Hey bank, could I get a £50,000 loan please? I want to buy the new Tesla. I'm sure we can give you the £50,000 loan with a 10% interest rate. Okay, that sounds reasonable. Hey bank, can I also get a £50,000 loan please? I'm expanding my business operations finally. Of course sir, we'll give you the £50,000 loan at a 1.5% interest rate. All my hard work's finally paying off, thank you. Whoa, why is my interest rate higher than his? I'll be paying back a lot more money. How else am I supposed to afford the Tesla? This is why you need a higher credit score, which I'll show you how to get if you click the plus button. Look, you got a lower credit score than him, so we think you're a lot less likely to pay back the 50k loan. It's standard for us to charge you a higher rate of interest to get back the cost of the loan earlier. This is why it's so important to have a good credit score. How do I get a good credit score then? If you want to learn how to boost your credit score, you should click the plus button.
One of the interesting things about TikTok is getting the right approach, not coming across as too tone deaf, because it's a fun place, right? It talks about serious topics, but TikTok is inherently entertaining. That's why it's such a powerful way of learning. And so you get lots of different styles, and it's really important if you're thinking about, and as I hope you do, engaging in the TikTok community is the mode in which you do that. And there are some really fantastic content creating agencies that can help you with that. I think we would love to help you understand those communities, but then by all means, before you then start engaging, get a really great, strong content creator partner who's going to be able to get you create the right content, work with the right influencers to get that out there. So lots of options. And when we're thinking about this, it's like FinTalk videos teach all financial services brand a simple lesson, is that learning should be fun. Like most of TikTok is entertainment. Sure, there are bits of it which are more emotionally raw, depending on the subject, but humor is how a lot of people gain influence and how a lot of people build their follower base, and then again that increases their influence. Most of the content that we're seeing in the space is humorous and it's friendly. It's really kind of, if you think about the content about personal finance on TikTok and compare that to the way that financial services companies tend to communicate, there's such a world of difference. And of course, I know about the world of regulation. However, that's not stopping people on TikTok really seriously giving financial advice to people. They shouldn't, they are. But this is the world that we live in. A lot of the content is just playful and creative. So in this example, you've got one person changing roles, playing different characters in the whole thing. It makes it fun. People play characters. And the key thing here is that entertainment really is the king in FinTalk. From all the content that we've seen, getting it lively, getting it entertaining, keeping it light-hearted, speaking to some of those sort of like underlying sort of issues that we saw, like the challenge of having the same lifestyle as your parents, that need to sort of shortcut, that gaining access to special knowledge, make that all fun, make it all engaging.
Did you know that until the 1960s, most women in America could not open a bank account of their own? Even though some banks were starting to let women open bank accounts, there were still many institutions that had policies disallowing women from taking out credit or loans. This is especially true for Black American women who were and still are regularly discriminated against in the financial space. Of course, this is also in spite of Madam C.J. Walker becoming the first woman self-made millionaire in the United States by selling a line of hair care products designed specifically for Black American women and becoming a notable real estate investor. Even with all of these accomplishments, it still was not until 1974 of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act that women were allowed to have a credit card. Today, only 26% of women invest, but that number is going up. So with all of that being said, get your money, ladies. Happy Women's History Month.
What we saw when we looked at FinTalk is there's appeal across genders and ethnicities. And we saw quite a cross-section of different types of people being represented and creating content and engaging in it. However, this idea of the finance bro is still very strong. That community is alive and well, and it's dominant. So at least sort of like 2-to-1 ratio is of that, i.e. the big macho, I'm making lots of money, here's my yacht, here are my parties, here's a great life that I live. That's a really strong, dominant narrative, but it's not the only one. And I think really interesting challenge is, can financial services brands work around the edges of that with the other communities, which are by all means pulling out of different points, having different stances, having a more realistic expectation and sort of guiding principles about how they work and what they want and how they want to help other people through and improve their finances. That's a really interesting opportunity to think about how you could engage with those to sort of balance this sort of semi-macho environment. What we are seeing is that because of the male dominance and this sort of like machismo and the stereotypes around that, that when women and other voices do stand up, they can come under attack. So they can get all the stereotyping that you could imagine. Their feed can come up with all sorts of vitriol, but that isn't stopping the people that are doing it. And what we are seeing is that women that are active in the space are proactively fighting back. They're sort of questioning the norms. They're standing strong. They're saying that they can do it. They're proving that they can trade and invest as well as the next person. And interestingly, they're really keen to support other women through that process. And we saw like this key theme of trying to support women's sense of financial independence coming through quite strongly as an interesting theme about how women can take control of their own finances and set their own course and set their own destiny. And this idea that financial freedom equals like personal freedom within relationships, that came across really well. So just wrapping up a little bit, thanks for your attention so far. I think when we're thinking about TikTok, there are a bunch of things that I think are important. The first one is don't fight it. Financial service brands have for years looked for ways to educate the public via seminars, podcasts, free books. On FinTalk, however, their absence is conspicuous. We don't see any big brands, then you're not in the space. And the failure to move onto social media platforms in the right way can risk failing to reach these new investors and future clients altogether. If you use FinTalk for advocacy and sharing advice, it will show you how there's a need for brands to practically and emotionally support those at the start of their personal finance journeys. And if you think about it, people are coming into the market daily, weekly, monthly. There's this strong desire for the right content from the right people at the right time. The next idea is really around use the force, right? If you come on to, you can't use your above the line advertising mode in the same way on TikTok. It doesn't work. It's so tone deaf. It just will jar massively. So you need to work with the ecosystem that's there. So work with those influencers who are already established on FinTok, who have these networks, because they can help you build credibility in your audience. And they can be one ways of overcoming Gen Z's reluctance to engage with branded content, because you'll get that shortcut. You've got the trusted partners. Key here is around just your ability to inform. So non-qualified people are sharing financial tips and getting rich quick hacks. And there's a need to balance that out. There's a need for financial brands to connect and sort of really correct this myth busting and ensure that consumers are receiving accurate, right, timely, succinct information that's bite-sized chunks for them. And look, TikTok can work really well as a way of signposting to longer form content. So we see a lot of people using very short TikToks to then drive content through into longer form work. And if you've got that interest, you've got that hook, you then have that ability to help them in the right way and take them off the platform into another area that you may control a bit more. We've got to talk about this number one concern for them, which is be sure to offer personalized financial advice that discusses the pros and the cons of financial risk taking versus playing it safe. That's the thing that so many people are talking about. Someone else might swoop in to address that central consumer preoccupation. If you don't, the market's open for it. It needs this balanced view. There's an opportunity as well to show empathy, particularly with Gen Zers. Tell them that you understand, express that you understand their frustrations with the current economic and financial system. Proactively come up with ways for them to get a leg up and to go the extra mile as a company to create opportunities for the young. They reward you for listening and being empathetic to their concerns. Let's make them laugh, right? The reach and engagement of FinTok videos prove that people are in fact really interested in financial education. But 60-second videos can only go so far. So financial services organizations should offer people the opportunity to sharpen their financial prowess with additional, more detailed content delivered in the same easygoing, humorous, and accessible manner. And the final point is it's all personal. The one-size-fits-all approach to managing people's finances is too impersonal. The immediacy, relatability, and intimacy of FinTok can make traditional banks' customer engagement feel a bit staid, a bit archaic. If you can personalize your financial services offerings and marketing to reflect the wide variety of genders and ethnicities interested in personal finance, then you're going to be in a strong footing going forward. Thank you so much for your time. Love to hear any questions. By all means, drop me an email or connect with me on LinkedIn. Until next time, thanks very much and goodbye.